Hi, friends. This is just a quick reminder that this is a podcast and therefore not meant as individual medical advice. We do discuss our own medical experiences on the show, as well as supplements and other healthcare approaches. When we do that, please see the show notes for any additional information regarding these resources. And with any change to your healthcare routine, please do the appropriate amount of due diligence before making any changes. On with the show. Hi, Lauren.
Hello.
How are you? What's new?
I'm good. What's new? Nothing really. I live a pretty boring life. Just been working, trying to work. It's summer, so it's a little slow. So I'm taking it easy too, not working as much. Just working on the business side of stuff and yeah, trying to do
Doing the
fun
grind.
things. Well, not really grinding like I should, but I'm tired of the grind.
Right? Yeah. Should be. The goal should be not the grind.
No, I know. And I feel like I've been very lazy. Like I don't want to do anything. I don't want to cook. I don't want to clean. I don't want to do laundry. So that's pretty much what I've been up to. But I did make it to the playground today. So yes, so it's starting to get a little bit nicer. It's not as sweltering here, and there was a little bit more of a breeze. So
Nice.
yes. What about you? What's going on?
Well, I am in Grand Haven, Michigan right now. I always used to talk about how it would, wouldn't get over 100 in South Florida, but it would in most other places in the country. But of course, the summer that we're here, it's just cold and rainy.
Wait, what's
well, it's going down to the 60s, high 50s at night, and it's it's in the 70s, but we're right on we're the Great Lakes, so there's wind and the Grand Haven is beautiful. Justin's mom just moved here, so we've been all over this place. It's the water is beautiful, the sailboats. We were walking on the beach, and I'm in basically this because I didn't pack. I've been wearing this shirt, this sweater, and then my raincoat pretty much every single day because it's the only way for me to stay warm. But we're walking on the beach and the water came up and I didn't notice, and I shrieked and ran away. I was like, oh my God, it's so cold. And then I went up to use the public restroom, and there was a volleyball tournament. And there's girls in bikinis. I have a scarf on too. I'm all like, oh. But there's people in the water. The water is 68 degrees or something insane. So it's all relative, I guess. Right? They're thick. Blood is thick here. But so we've been having a nice time. We've been here for about a week, and we've got another. I think 2 weeks, a little over a week, little less than 2 weeks to go. We're going to go up to the UP next, and then over to Newberry to see his grandparents for 8 days, and then over to Escanaba to go for his cousin's wedding. And that's the adventure. But we're just gonna get right into the nitty gritty here because I've been having some issues with just abdominal discomfort that it's you almost don't notice how bad it is because it's gradually worse over time. But then the week before we left, I had an acute situation. I was in a lot of pain. I happened to have an appointment with my primary care doctor to go over renew my physical therapy prescription. And I thought I had a bowel obstruction, and I have a history of lots of scar tissue. I knew I had an endometrioma. I have some other fibroids that I knew were there. But this was like profound discomfort. I got she, wrote me a script to get an abdominal CT and an ultrasound. And after having a history of stage 4 endometriosis, I've had 3 abdominal surgeries in the past. I've had follicular cysts. I had a fibroid removed last year, vaginally because it was in the lining. So
You know how big that was?
that one,
Or do you not remember?
it wasn't that big but because it was in the lining, it bled a lot.
Mhm.
And so it's easier to go in and remove. That was a really quick, just like in office. I was under anesthesia, but it was they just did the whole thing vaginally, so it's not that invasive. And I felt a lot better like right after that. So I did have other fibroids, but they weren't as big. But over the past year, they've grown. And now I have one fibroid. They're both about like 2.5 inches. And one is on the front of my uterus, like pushing into my bladder. And one is on the
Mm,
back of my uterus, pushing into my bowel, like
mm.
2 inches in either direction. And then my right ovary is like twice the size of my left.
Because of that
And
or not really related?
no, because it's of something completely different. Because there's like 3 endometriomas in there, or what they think are endometriomas, but they, she's like, we can't leave those in there. Like the longer, even, they're not exactly positive that that's what they are. And the
What's
longer
endometrioma?
an endometrioma is like endometriosis is the buildup of like the lining of the uterus outside the uterus.
Mhm.
And so it builds up and sheds and bleeds in the abdominal cavity, and it can cause a lot of pain. It's hard for the abdominal cavity to metabolize that excess tissue. And then your immune system doesn't necessarily recognize it. So then scar tissue starts to build up and like fuse your organs together. And it's,
Mhm.
can turn into a really big mess, as I've found out personally in my life. And endometrioma is when it gets into like a sac. So it's like it's
Mhm.
like a cyst full of the endometriosis. So it's different than
Okay.
other ovarian cysts. Now, the reason why this undoubtedly happened over time, but the reason why I had such an acute, like pain, like week of extraordinary pain, was because I had like a follicular cyst rupture. So that's just, like your normal follicular cyst that releases the egg every month. Sometimes they don't rupture. And when they get a little bit bigger and they rupture and there's extra fluid, it can be really like aggravating to your whole um, abdominal cavity. And I've had those happen before. Um, so yeah, that was right before we left. I found that out, and then I managed to get a telehealth visit with my gynecologist in Michigan, who's new to me, and um, she's recommending a hysterectomy.
Why?
Okay, so um, because there's a few different ways they could go in. Like if we were just talking about the fibroids,
Mhm.
I would definitely, the only thing I would do right now is get a uterine artery embolization, and I might still get that first anyway. And that's where they go in through like the groin or your wrist, and they
Mhm.
put some sort of like a pellet to block off the blood supply to the fibroids, and it causes them to kind of like shrink. And um, that's obviously minimally invasive. And given my history, because the more surgeries you have, the more likely you are to get more scar tissue. And in the past, I had a surgery just that where all they found was scar tissue. Um, so, um, but because that ovary has to come out, they have to go in there anyway.
Uh,
Um, and then, so it's like, do you do 2 different
the one
procedures?
endometrioma is it has to come
Has to come out. Yeah. And she said it's likely not the tissue, from all the prior surgeries and the scar tissue, and then these, like it's probably just like dead disease tissue at this point. There's no estrogen really probably coming out of it anyway. Um, and so she could go in and she did give me the option. She's like, it wouldn't be unreasonable to just go in there and I can do like a laser ablation, or they do like a ultrasonic, whatever ablation of the fibroids at that time. But that's no guarantee that they're not going to come back. And then that they'd have to go in again. And that would be my 5th abdominal surgery. So
I told you to come to me and get the FSM for the fibroids and scar tissue.
yeah, we're still gonna have to go over that because I still don't know what it is. So we'll definitely do an episode on that. But so right now, she's younger. She didn't really seem to have like a full grasp on my history. And the surgeon I saw last time in Celebration was amazing. When I didn't want to get a hysterectomy, and I'm not looking forward to it now, but at some point it's just like, I have to be able to live my life without getting another surgery. But when I did want to get a hysterectomy, he was the only person I could find that wasn't like, well, I can't guarantee I won't give you a hysterectomy. I'm like, what? And I'm glad I didn't do it at that time, because I wouldn't have been as comfortable as I am with the HRT, with the hormone replacement therapy. And, I would have suffered a lot throughout because that was the last time they went in was 2016. So that's been 7 years ago now. But so what I'm looking at now is because I don't know when I'm going to be able to get into him. I'm looking at doing the uterine artery embolization like as soon as I can while we're in Michigan. We're booked to go to Mexico October 1st, which can certainly be switched around, but I don't know how far out his surgeries are scheduled. But doing that, I had that idea before, but then doing that beforehand is actually, since I haven't given birth, it's harder to do a vaginal hysterectomy, because it comes out obviously through the birth canal. So the smaller those fibroids are, the less they have to screw around in there, the easier, the tissue can come out and stuff like that. So nothing's set in stone right now. I'm already like preparing my operative schedule, but I'm going to wait until I do the surgeon that's been, doing these procedures for 40 years. So I really trust him, and he's minimally invasive. So he might have some other ideas too, but it is a consequence of like, I had a degree of calm through several years. And, there's a point to where you can, calm down, like you can't, nutritionally shrink a fibroid or anything like that. But you can do a lot to balance your hormones, to like decrease the likelihood of like getting more fibroids, or, calm down endometriosis and these different things. But during perimenopause, there's just no such thing as balancing your hormones, because and that's the topic of what, we're launching right into perimenopause today, because, perimenopause it's not just like the steady decline of estrogen that menopause is. It's this roller coaster of like, like hormonal surges and then drops and surge and drop. And it's like actually the opposite of like, like it looks like the mirror opposite of puberty, where it's, kind of dips and surges. So it explains a lot of things. If you're going through it, like you do kind of feel like a moody teenager with a lot more responsibilities. Like,
Do you think that
lacking
is why all this stuff is happening now again?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it is any like reproductive issues that you've had before are highly likely to return during perimenopause. And it's because all of these reproductive disorders like respond to hormone fluctuations. And like it's actually the most common time to be diagnosed with like problematic fibroids. You can have fibroids and never have an issue, but most women have issues with problematic fibroids where they need to be treated during the perimenopausal time. So, because this is a new thing for me. I never had, like, that was one thing I didn't have issues with, like before the age of 40, and then now I do.
Okay, so what exactly is perimenopause other than
Yep.
the surge of hormones up and down, and what hormones are we talking about, and
Yeah.
kind of get into that a little bit?
So there's a lot of changes going on during this time. And perimenopause actually like translates to around menopause. And it can, where the average age of menopause is 51. And menopause only actually refers to the 12 consecutive, like the first 12 consecutive months without a period. So you don't know that you've been through menopause until like you've gone until after it's already happened. It's such a weird thing. But so you can go like 10 months without a period and then get a period, and then you haven't gone through menopause. So you've got to wait another 12 months and to be like technically menopausal. And I don't know how they like came up with like that idea, but I guess that's the magic number where I guess it doesn't come back. Whereas perimenopause, it can last up to 10 years or more for some people. On average, it starts between the ages of 40 and 44. As the like estrogen starts to decline, you will so estrogen will start to decline a little bit, and like I said, it's like your body's kind of trying to fight it or something. But so you end up with these surges. But so as you have like, if you have like lower estrogen, you may not ovulate, and if you don't ovulate, you don't get the release of progesterone from the follicular cyst. So your progesterone will be low. Your testosterone will be, like going down usually this time a little bit as well. And this leads to all of the, on average, and there's a direct like hormonal, like physiological reason why women gain on average 11 to 18 pounds during this time. And it's usually around the midsection because you become less insulin sensitive. Estrogen is regulates your cortisol. So when your cortisol goes on unchecked, you have higher inflammation, less insulin sensitivity, and then you end up with a higher likelihood of like gaining weight around the middle.
So then there has to be like some kind of a food situation that you would, I guess, kind of transition to in that time too.
Yeah, you will start to notice when I and I was on a medication that I went off of that kind of rapidly like put me in this like very extreme perimenopausal state. And I haven't for I don't know, decades I haven't drank soda or juice or I put a tiny bit of honey in my coffee. Like I haven't really had like a sweet tooth, but I was like in where was I? In Vietnam, like just I'm like wanting to suck down like cold Sprites, and like I could have like just drinking like mango juice. And
it's so funny because
extreme side for sugar.
Well, we tried to do this podcast 2 weeks ago, guys, and it didn't come out. But anyways, we were talking about how everything that Jessie is saying about perimenopause, if you've been pregnant, it's literally the same thing. My pregnancy with my daughter, I hadn't had soda in forever. I'm not a huge sugar person either. And all I wanted was a cherry Coke and a Dr. Pepper and like sweet stuff. I don't know why. It was the weirdest thing. But yeah, it's interesting how the hormones of perimenopause and everything that you're going through is so, you say it reminds you of puberty, maybe, but for me, I guess because it was so much more recent,
Right.
pregnancy, it was like it's insane how everything is just so up and down with pregnancy. But sorry, go ahead. I
Right.
cut you off before.
Well, and that's an important, like an important aspect. Like there's so much like going on during this time. There's so much change, like physiological changes that we will take on as like faults in ourselves, you know, like just why can't I, you know, I mean, not me,
Yeah.
but because I at least knew what was going on, you know, and I will not take responsibility for things that are not my own doing, but but I mean, just to like, I mean, I was fully aware of what
Yeah.
but even being aware of it, I was like, I need sugar. Like, I mean, it was crazy. Like, and I mean, even like, even when I wanted sweet stuff, like, I in the past, I wanted like real food, you know, but I was just like, I want artificial, I want to just drink corn syrup. Like it.
Oh, God.
And then, but a lot of women will
That's the
just
insulin
like beat
resistance.
themselves. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of women were like beat themselves up because it's like, why can't, so what'll happen is
Or
like,
succumb to it, gain the weight, and then like, what the hell happened?
right.
What did I? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or start like dieting more and more and more, like just restricting more calories. And then, you know, you can only do that for so long and your body kind of takes over and then you're just eating like a bunch of sugar, but you've been
Right.
like not eating enough like good food. So that's going to cause like a myriad of issues. But it like having an awareness of what's going on during this time and sort of like a plan, because it's not just like your food cravings. It's also like any sort of like brain fog is a really, you know, cognitive issues, executive functioning. It's the same with pregnancy.
Same with pregnancy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you can see how, I mean, hormones can really like just kind of take over, you know, no matter how like it's, this is why it's like so important not to like rely on willpower or, you know, so it's knowing what's going on and being able to set yourself up for success and like remove as many obstacles as possible. It's like the way to go here. But if you have any sort of like ADHD, like that tends to get worse. If you've suffered from depression before, you're likely going to go through another bout again. And a lot of this is going to sound like, you know, like just the bad news podcast. But like I am of the mind that like the more you know about something, the better you are able to like circumvent, you know, the worst outcomes. You know, I would much rather be like completely in the know of what's going on. And there are so many things that you can do. That the 40s are really your time to like make sure your house is in order. So not just so that you don't suffer through these years, but yes, your physical house.
For all those with brain fog. It's the body, not your actual house. Your temple.
So this is the changes that happen during this time. So not only will like not sleeping, that's another one, heart palpitations, insomnia, like if
I
you
want to talk about sleeping too with this, but go ahead. We'll come back.
I mean, if you are not sleeping well, it doesn't matter what stage of life you're in, you are not going to be able to recover from your workouts. Your body isn't going to be able to get rid of like waste and fight off infections and cancer. You're not going to be able to build muscle. You're, not going to make, you're going to be craving even more sugar. And so and this is really your, like, not your last chance, because there's always a time to turn anything around and improve your health. But this is like the last decade where it's like reasonably attainable to increase your bone density and increase your muscle mass and prevent damage to your arteries. Heart disease starts in your teenage years, maybe even before, like, and it just, so, and, something I learned through all this, think we should leave it alone.
Sorry.
Everybody paying attention. Yes. So something really startling I learned through all this was, like, once you go through menopause, your risk for heart disease skyrockets. Whereas it happens earlier for men, it happens sharply after menopause for women. And it's not just like the age, because depending on, if like menopause at 40 and somebody else that goes into menopause at like 62, it has the same increase at completely different times. And that's actually the leading killer of women. 1 in 3 women die of heart disease. And I don't think enough people are aware of that. So that's hugely important, but so it's going to affect, like, it can cause joint pain. It can disrupt your digestive function, so many symptoms, because it literally affects like every.
Well, and right. You were saying every component. It's your nervous system, your digestive system, your cardiovascular system, your neurological system. It literally, you were telling me, affects every single system in your body. So,
yeah.
Okay, then I don't know if you want to time this, because I have a question that might not go in here. But anyways, what are some things that you would do then to either get ahead of that, or maybe when you realize, like, okay, so for instance, I was having a conversation with one of my girlfriends who, she's in her early 50s. She said 46 is when she stopped her menstrual cycle. But she's always been doing a testosterone replacement therapy since she was like in her 30s. But that was because her boyfriend's a DO, or her ex-boyfriend's a DO. That was one of his specialties, and he was always giving it to her. And I asked her, I said, why haven't you incorporated the other ones? Because the personal trainer, she always talks about how she's gotten older and her muscle isn't the same. It's like building her muscle isn't coming as easy as it used to. So it kind of dawned on me, since we've been talking about this, and I asked her, I'm like, why haven't you done those? And she's like, well, he did my blood work, but he really said that I didn't need the estrogen and the progesterone. But I don't really believe that, because at any time your hormones could be, I could walk out of the office and my hormones could be totally different than when he did the blood work. So then how do you know? How do you know
Right.
when to start if you haven't gone through it yet?
Right. So this is one of the really important things, because and so many women have suffered through this, not even knowing what's going on. I didn't have any idea I'd heard of it before, but I really didn't know what perimenopause was. And perimenopause, you can get blood work done and like test your hormones, but they can be like, it can show up as like perfectly normal for wherever you are in your cycle 1 month. And that doesn't mean anything, because the next month they can be in the basement, like they can just be super low, or they can be surging. And perimenopause it's not diagnosed through any sort of like testing. It's diagnosed through ruling out other, autoimmune issues, any sort of like reproductive disorders. Not that those things can't like be happening, at the same time, but usually that's the first place. They make sure like that you're not having thyroid issues and that you're not, having these, you don't have like ovarian cancer or something like that. And then, depending on your age, depending on your family history, different things like what age you started your period can make a difference. If you've had a hysterectomy where they just take out your uterus, you're still likely to go in to menopause early and start perimenopause early, just from the stress to the area. The ovaries start slowing down sooner. Endometriosis makes you more likely to start. So it is, you can, and I'm going to have a are you in perimenopause quiz in the show notes for people to take. And that's, not going to, substitute for a diagnosis from a doctor, but it's how likely it is. And you can talk to a doctor about this. Yeah, the best way to do that, like try your gynecologist or your primary care physician that you have now. Most doctors have not been educated, well at all. They're not up to date with the latest research. And so the Mayo Clinic did a 2017 study where they tested, they surveyed postgraduates in like primary care, gynecology and internal medicine or something. They had maybe 1 to 2 hours of training in menopause. They like maybe 20% said that they felt, no. It was like 20% had no training at all in menopause. And something like 7% felt like they had, they felt confident that they had the adequate information to help actually treat women going through menopause. So if you go to menopause.org, and we'll put a link to this in the show notes as well, there are like doctors that have gotten additional certifications in the most up-to-date information and treatments available to help you during this time. Perimenopause isn't a disease. Everybody, everybody's nobody's gonna escape it. It's but it can be extremely disruptive. I mean, nowadays this is like the height of our careers, of our families for a lot of us. And we're living longer. And so it's just there's so much additional pressure on us to like do all the things, be all the things. And then to have your body just like feeling like it's malfunctioning on every level. It's just not conducive to like, achieving your goals. So, yeah. So, and I talk to people all the time where it's so obvious, that like their doctor has no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're not even following the like up-to-date guidelines. So if you go to your, the gynecologist, the primary care person that you have already, and you feel like they don't really get it, they haven't really listened, they didn't really help you, go to that link at menopause.org to find like a physician in your area that has that additional education certification. So
Second opinions are always a good option, just so, just for peace of mind, because it's like anything. Every doctor is going to communicate differently. Some doctors have great bedside manner, some doctors don't. And maybe we're not conveying ourselves properly, and it could be intimidating to some people. Some
Right.
people are intimidated when they into the doctor's room. Their nervous system just freaks out, their blood pressure just automatically goes up. And I had that issue with my first OB that I was seeing for my pregnancy. I did not like them. I didn't think that they were listening to me. And I went back to my primary. I talked to him and he listened to me, and he said, please go get a second opinion. Like you have the right to do that. If you're not comfortable, I don't agree with what they're doing. And you do deserve a second opinion. So it's always nice to just have that for peace of mind. And then I did switch and I loved my second OB and he was great. And
but so, and we'll go, we are going to, like, this is such a broad overview. One thing I want to say is to go, when you do go to the doctor, you want to look for, different things like, are your periods getting less regular? Are the cycles shorter or longer? Are they getting heavier, more painful? You'll have more clots a lot of times. Like, are you having a hard time sleeping? Are you having palpitations? Hot flashes, or certainly those are usually like later on. But they can certainly come early, like just, fatigue. If you're like doing the same exercise and diet that has always yielded the same results in the past and it's not working, that's a really good sign that your hormones are changing. So being prepared and just having,
and you don't usually.
right.
Or just in general, if your eating habits have changed and it's not like your normal eating habits, would that be kind of a sign too? More
if you
less healthy foods.
Yeah, if you find it like you're like you have less satiety from your foods, if you're just like craving way more sweets, any of these changes, it's going to be, I can list all these things, like you can have changes in your skin, breast tenderness, but that's, throughout the cycles. But if it's new, certainly hair loss, changes in hair growth, being able, like, this will be a whole episode, not being able to recover from alcohol as well, because you actually stop producing the enzyme that breaks it down. And even like dry eyes and like bladder pressure, it can start changing, like vaginal dryness. We're going to kind of work our way through the body and like talk about, health in that area, like through the lens of perimenopause and menopause and long-term, what are the best, proactive steps that you can take to like support, being as healthy as you can so you can enjoy your life. So
are we going to do that on another episode, or are we going to talk about some of that stuff now?
I think that we should probably save that for episodes that are coming up. Let's see, we talked about like the testing and stuff. I mean, like,
and signs to look for, signs and symptoms.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna run the gamut of like just lifestyle and behavior, different ways to approach exercise, different ways to approach your diet. Like it's basically everything that was important before is extremely important now. There's no like coasting. You're just not going to get away with stuff anymore, and that's unfortunate, but it's also fortunate because that you're getting that feedback right away that what you're doing isn't working, so that if you listen to it and you make the adjustments, you're less likely to suffer the long-term consequences of it. So not fun, but it's it's got its advantages, I guess. But we're certainly going to go into like a deep dive into hormonal replacement therapy, how it's different from birth control, how it's different than what it used to be. We're like the Women's Health Initiative that like broadly halted hormone replacement therapy for most of the women in the world. The study didn't necessarily get things wrong. The interpretation wasn't great in some areas, and mostly the media, medical media, it was just misrepresented. the medical literature. And so it's thankfully it's being more like it's been broadly reviewed over the last 5 years, and they have newer studies coming up, but they have different compounds now. And, we'll talk about whether or not, you want to take HRT. We'll talk about there's other medical options. And there's also different supplemental options for like certain symptoms. So we are going to run the gamut. Let me see. And I feel like that's a good, because then from here we can just kind of keep it, like our topics.
No, this is definitely much better than the last one. It happened for a reason. It didn't upload for a reason. It was very intense. But I feel like this is like really nice and like a good flow, and yes.
Yes. All right. Well, we're going to do sign off. So I don't know what we're going to talk about next week.
Well, what's the hot tip? Give us a hot tip.
Oh, hot tip. Hot tip.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we could talk about, give a hot tip for, I guess, what we're talking about, like food for perimenopause. I don't know.
I feel like I had one before.
I don't remember.
Oh, mine. Yes. Okay. So I'll give mine. I'll give you a minute to think of yours. My hot tip was medical tourism. So
Medical tourism?
Mhm.
What is that?
So this is something I discovered. I had no idea what it was until like the first time I went to Costa Rica. And I was sitting at the bar watching all my friends like eat shit out on the water, like wondering why they like surfing, because it's like seems like a lot of work to just fall down a lot. But and so I was chatting it up with a woman at the bar, and she told me that she was there to get dental work done because it had been she'd been quoted some astronomical number to get some dental work done, and then found out like it was so much cheaper there. And in a lot of places, including Costa Rica, they adhere to the international standards of dentistry, which are actually higher than the US standards. And it's at a tiny fraction of the cost. So I actually, I was quoted like $25,000 to, because I broke all my amalgam fillings from clenching my jaw. We'll talk about emotional stress at some point too. We'll talk about ineffective coping mechanisms at some point. $25,000, and they're like, "Well, don't worry, we can do it over like if several years." I was like, "Cool!" Like I just have this metal like breaking, and so I went there, and it ended up being like $3,500. I got
my gosh.
way too many things done in like a short period of time, but like, and I got a vacation out of it. My face was swollen up for like a good chunk of it, but they picked me up from the airport. Yeah, they picked me up from the airport. Oh my gosh. Arranged my stay, Ubered me to and from all my appointments, and it was all Canadians and U.S. citizens in the state-of-the-art facility. I mean, way better than a lot of the dentist's office I've been in here. So and
is looking to medical tourism.
Yes, yeah. I mean, especially if depending on what it is. And certainly do your due diligence. But I mean, even in Mexico, I was able to get a breast ultrasound, a full blood panel of hormones. I got a urinalysis, a vaginal ultrasound, and then like the appointment with the doctor. And it was like $200, and it happened all of it in like 2 days. I mean, it was amazing. Like, can you imagine trying to get all that done here? Like how long that actually takes?
No, for thermography, I think it cost me like 150, and I'm kind of convinced it was bullshit, but we'll talk about that too. Or I wasn't given the proper prep, I guess, directions. I guess there's ways you're supposed to prep for, okay, so that'll be my hot tip. If you're getting thermography.
And what is thermography?
Okay, so thermography is basically, I think it's infrared. They're looking at your body with an infrared camera trying to pick up hot spots. So if they see hot spots, then they're not diagnosing you, but they're basically saying, okay, you need to go get this looked at by a medical doctor. In a nutshell, that's what it is. So I had it done for my breast because I have never had I think this was in March or April, and the lady came to my studio, my massage studio, and it's always hot in there because my AC was not working properly for a while. So it's always hot in there. Plus I worked before she came. So my work is a lot of upper body, chest, and back stuff. So when she did the thermography, I'm laughing because I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned about it. But when she did the thermography, I was solid red, solid. And you really don't want to see any red. And I was like, that's interesting. So they
excuse me while I call everyone and say goodbye.
Right. So regardless of whether it's red or not, because then the opposite is blue. Totally blue is like nothing is wrong. Red is like, oh shit, what's happening? And I was literally solid. So they want you to come back after 3 months and do it again because they want to see if there have been any changes. Well, the woman never told me not to work prior. She never told me to like stand under cold AC. She didn't tell me until she got there. She's like, this room isn't cold enough. It needs to be like really cold in here. I'm like, well, you didn't say that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even had her come there. Right. So anyways, if you're going to get thermography, don't do anything, like really don't do anything physical before your appointment. Like the whole day leading up to your appointment, because apparently that's the best way that it works. So
is that recognized by like conventional? No. Okay.
No, that's why they say they're not diagnosing you, and that's why they want you to do it twice within 3 months, because they want to compare and see what your results are. And then from there, they kind of say, okay, you should go get checked out. Like one of my friends, she had breast cancer. She swears by thermography because she swears that that's what caught her breast cancer and not her mammogram. She had a mammogram. It didn't catch it. She got thermography and it caught it in a sense. Something showed up. And then finally they were like, oh yeah, you do have breast cancer. So it's like one of those where it can catch things, I guess,
that aren't.
That mammogram not too late, but until it's already like over a certain point. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like earlier detection.
Earlier. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I just got my second mammogram. And again, instead of like, they have the ultrasound machine right there, like they already knew I have dense breast tissue, like, and I'm going to need they're going to recommend a breast ultrasound, but for some reason I can't just get the stupid thing done at the same time. So I'll be probably doing that again in Mexico.
Well, and I guess why a lot of people do thermography is because if they have dense breast tissue too, because a lot of mammograms don't catch, or
Right.
it's not. I don't know, because I haven't had one yet. So
It's time. It's time to start getting those.
my mom's been telling me for the past I don't know how many years, you need a mammogram. I'm like, whatever. I know.
Not whatever. It's time to start getting them.
I know.
Well,
I need
talk about all the preventative screenings that get to start happening in your 40s too.
Okay.
All right, Lauren. We will see you next week.
Okay.
We'll TBD. We'll figure it out.
See you next Tuesday.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's right. I forgot our official sign. See you next Tuesday. So good. We should just call the podcast the See You Next Tuesday podcast.
It probably already exists.
Maybe. Okay. Okay, bye.